In the quiet town of Santo Valle, surrounded by mountains and vast green fields, lived Raimundo, a simple and dedicated farmer. His days began before sunrise and only ended when the stars were already shining in the sky. Raimundo had hands calloused by hard work and a heart full of dreams. One of those dreams was to buy a tractor to make farm work easier and increase his production, ensuring a more comfortable life for his family. For years, Raimundo saved every penny, giving up small luxuries and facing difficulties, but always with a smile on his face and the determination to achieve his goal. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but hope was what kept him going. When the day finally came to fulfill his dream, Raimundo, with money in hand, headed to the big city where the largest tractor dealership in the region was located. He was excited and confident, but didn't imagine that this day, which should have been joyful, would turn into a test of his patience and dignity. What Raimundo didn't know was that sometimes the greatest harvest doesn't come from the land, but from the lessons we plant in people's hearts. Santo Valle was a small town surrounded by vast fields and distant mountains. It was a place where simplicity reigned and life revolved around the land. Among the many farmers in the region, Raimundo was known not only for his hard work, but also for his humility and kindness. Even though he didn't have much, he always helped his neighbors when he could, whether by lending tools or sharing part of his harvest during tough times. Raimundo lived in a modest farmhouse with his wife Maria and their two children, 12-year-old Pedro and 8-year-old Rosa. The family's livelihood came from what Raimundo planted and harvested with his own hands. However, each year, the challenges of manual labor became more apparent. The hoe and ox-drawn plow were no longer sufficient to meet the needs of the land. "Dad, why don't we buy a tractor like our neighbor Juan?" Pedro asked curiously while helping his father prepare the land. Raimundo sighed, wiping sweat from his forehead with his arm. "Because a tractor is expensive, son, but one day, God willing, we'll have one." That dream of owning a tractor, which seemed distant, began to take root in Raimundo's mind. He knew that with such a machine, he could expand production and secure a better future for his children. And so, he decided to start saving. The sacrifices began immediately. Raimundo saved every penny he could in an old can he carefully hid in the back of the cupboard. Maria, though she also dreamed of renovating the house or buying new clothes for the children, supported her husband. "It's a good plan, Raimundo. A tractor will change our lives." The years that followed were not easy. While other families enjoyed town festivals or bought new items, Raimundo and his family chose to live even more modestly. No new clothes, no trips, no luxuries. Even birthday gifts for the children were homemade. "Dad, why didn't you buy the candy I asked for?" Rosa asked with curious eyes during a town fair. "Because we're saving for something bigger, dear. Candy is nice for a day, but what I want will bring good things for many years." Over time, Raimundo's determination began to inspire the neighbors. Many doubted he could ever save so much money, but they admired his persistence nonetheless. He never complained, even in the most difficult moments. One night, Maria noticed the fatigue in her husband's eyes as he did calculations by the light of a lamp. "Raimundo, are you sure it's worth it? It's been so long and you've worked so hard." "It's worth it, Maria. A tractor isn't just a machine, it's our family's future. It's what will give our children the chance to grow up without the hardships we've faced." Finally, after years of effort, the big day arrived. Raimundo had managed to save the necessary amount. That morning, he woke up earlier than usual, put on his best shirt, which, although faded, was the most presentable he had, and adjusted his straw hat. With the envelope of money tucked safely in his pocket, he climbed into the old truck and set off for the big city. As he drove down the dirt road, Raimundo felt his heart beat faster. He was anxious but confident. This wasn't just about a machine. It was the realization of a dream built with sweat, patience, and love for his family. Seeing the city's buildings in the distance, he smiled. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter, he thought. However, Raimundo didn't know that this day would test his patience, dignity, and above all, his faith in himself. When Raimundo arrived in the big city, it was like stepping into another world. Accustomed to the calm and silence of the countryside, he felt a little lost amid the noise of cars, hurried people, and store windows filled with things that seemed out of his reach. But he wasn't intimidated. Gripping the steering wheel of his old truck firmly, he parked in front of the largest tractor dealership in the region. The dealership was modern and luxurious, with tractors gleaming under strategically placed lights outside. Raimundo adjusted his shirt and took one last look at the envelope of money in his pocket. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also the hope that this day would mark the beginning of a new phase in his life. When he entered the store, the stares began. Well-dressed customers and suit-clad employees looked Raimundo up and down as if he were out of place. His faded shirt, simple pants, and dirt-stained boots stood in stark contrast to the luxurious environment. But Raimundo, unaware of the discomfort he caused others, walked to the counter with firm steps and a smile on his face. "Good morning. I'm here to buy a tractor. I'd like to know about the models and prices," he said humbly to the first salesperson he saw. The salesperson, Claudio, was impeccably dressed, but quickly revealed his arrogance. He looked at Raimundo with a forced smile, and noticing the straw hat and calloused hands of the farmer, let out a slight chuckle. "Good morning, sir," Claudio said with a barely disguised mocking tone. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" "Yes, I am. I worked hard to be here. I want to see the available models." Claudio exchanged looks with another salesperson and made a discreet gesture as if to say, "Look at this." He tried to stifle a laugh but couldn't. "All right then, let's start with the simpler models," Claudio said, leading Raimundo to the quieter part of the store, where the cheapest and oldest tractors were displayed. While showing the models, the salesperson made comments that sounded polite but were full of irony. "These here are more affordable, perhaps something within your budget, you know?" Raimundo, with his usual patience, carefully examined each tractor. He knew what he wanted and wouldn't let Claudio's words sway him. After hearing the specifications, Raimundo pointed to one of the store's most modern tractors, a robust, powerful model he knew would be perfect for his needs. "And that one over there? How much does it cost?" he asked, pointing at the tractor. Claudio could barely contain his laughter this time. "That one? Oh, sir, that's our most expensive model. It costs over 300,000 reais," he said, as if it were a joke. "Perhaps we should look at something else, something more modest." At this moment, other employees began noticing the situation. A small group of curious customers discreetly approached to watch the scene unfold. Raimundo felt the weight of their gazes judging him, but remained steadfast. "I want to know more about this model. It's what I need." Claudio shook his head impatiently and began explaining the tractor's specifications, but with an obvious tone of disdain. "But let's be honest, a tractor like this isn't for just anyone. It's a high-performance machine made for large properties, not the kind of thing someone like you would typically buy." Claudio's words cut deep, but Raimundo took a deep breath. He knew the value of his work and the sacrifices he had made to be there. Ignoring the stares and quiet chuckles, he took the envelope from his pocket and placed it on the counter. "Here's the money. You can count it." He looked at Raimundo with a forced smile, and noticing the straw hat and calloused hands of the farmer, let out a slight chuckle. "Good morning, sir," Claudio said with a barely disguised mocking tone. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" "Yes, I am. I worked hard to be here. I want to see the available models." Claudio exchanged looks with another salesperson and made a discreet gesture as if to say, "Look at this." He tried to stifle a laugh but couldn't. "All right then, let's start with the simpler models," Claudio said, leading Raimundo to the quieter part of the store, where the cheapest and oldest tractors were displayed. While showing the models, the salesperson made comments that sounded polite but were full of irony. "These here are more affordable, perhaps something within your budget, you know?" Raimundo, with his usual patience, carefully examined each tractor. He knew what he wanted and wouldn't let Claudio's words sway him. After hearing the specifications, Raimundo pointed to one of the store's most modern tractors, a robust, powerful model he knew would be perfect for his needs. "And that one over there? How much does it cost?" he asked, pointing at the tractor. Claudio could barely contain his laughter this time. That one. Oh, sir, that's our most expensive model. It costs over 300,000 reais, he said as if it were a joke. Perhaps we should look at something else, something more modest. At this moment, other employees began noticing the situation. A small group of curious customers discreetly approached to watch the scene unfold. Raimundo felt the weight of their gazes judging him, but remained steadfast. I want to know more about this model. It's what I need. Claudio shook his head impatiently and began explaining the tractor's specifications, but with an obvious tone of disdain. But let's be honest, a tractor like this isn't for just anyone. It's a high-performance machine made for large properties, not the kind of thing someone like you would typically buy. Claudio's words cut deep, but Raimundo took a deep breath. He knew the value of his work and the sacrifices he had made to be there. Ignoring the stares and quiet chuckles, he took the envelope from his pocket and placed it on the counter. Here's the money. You can count it. Claudio's laughter stopped instantly. The envelope stuffed with cash silenced the store. The salesperson's eyes widened, and he was left speechless. The other employees and customers, who had been whispering among themselves moments earlier, now watched in stunned silence. The store manager, Roberto, noticed the commotion and rushed over to intervene. "Sir, what's going on here?" he asked, looking at Claudio with disapproval. Raimundo, with his characteristic calm, responded, "I'm here to buy a tractor. Here's the money." But it seems they didn't believe me. Roberto looked at Claudio, clearly irritated, then turned to Raimundo. "Sir, I apologize for our staff's behavior. We'll handle this immediately. Please, follow me." Claudio stood frozen, his face red with embarrassment, as Roberto escorted Raimundo to a private room to finalize the purchase. The humiliation the farmer had suffered would be remembered by everyone there, but that wasn't the end of the story. Raimundo still had something to say before leaving the store. After manager Roberto took over, Raimundo finally received the respect he deserved. In a private room, Roberto apologized multiple times while reviewing the specifications of the chosen tractor. "Mr. Raimundo, on behalf of our company, I deeply regret the behavior of our employees. What happened was unacceptable. We'll ensure your experience here ends in the best way possible." Though still hurt, Raimundo remained calm. He knew there was no point in holding a grudge, but he also understood that people sometimes needed to learn a lesson. While Roberto finalized the paperwork and confirmed the payment, Raimundo felt a mix of relief and satisfaction. All the effort and sacrifices he and his family had made were finally paying off. This tractor would be more than a machine. It would symbolize hard work and overcoming challenges. Before leaving the store, Raimundo knew he needed to close this chapter with dignity. He requested that Claudio, the salesperson who had humiliated him, be called to the room. Roberto hesitated, but complied with the request. A few minutes later, Claudio entered, visibly uncomfortable. The man who had previously exuded arrogance now seemed small before Raimundo. "You asked to see me?" Claudio asked quietly, avoiding eye contact with the farmer. Raimundo, standing calmly, looked directly at him and said, "Yes, I did. I want you to listen to me for a moment." The room fell silent. All eyes were on Raimundo, who began speaking in a firm but not angry voice. "I come from far away, Claudio, from a land where every penny we earn comes from hard work. This money," he pointed to the now empty envelope on the table, "was saved over years, years of sacrifice, years where my family went without many things so we could achieve something greater." Claudio swallowed hard, but Raimundo continued. "When I walked in here today, I expected to be treated like any other customer. But you judged me by my appearance, by my clothes. You thought I had no worth. And that, Claudio, is a mistake many people make." Raimundo paused, letting his words resonate. Roberto looked at Claudio with reproach, but allowed Raimundo to continue. "I'm not here to humiliate you or demand anything. I'm here to teach you something. A person's worth isn't in what they wear, where they come from, or how much money they have in their pocket. A person's worth lies in their character and the respect they show to others." Claudio, visibly ashamed, murmured, "You're absolutely right. I was wrong. I apologize for my behavior." Raimundo nodded, accepting the apology, but decided to leave one last lesson. "I hope that from today on, You treat everyone who walks into this store the way I should have been treated, because you never know who you're dealing with. Sometimes, the calloused hands you look down on are the very ones that sustain families and build the future of this country." Claudio simply lowered his head, too ashamed to respond. With the purchase finalized, Raimundo left the room accompanied by Roberto, who offered to escort him to the tractor that was now officially his. The employees and customers who had witnessed the earlier humiliation now watched in silence as Raimundo climbed onto his new tractor. Before leaving, he looked at everyone and said, "Never judge someone by their appearance. What matters is what we carry in our hearts and what we build with our hands." When Raimundo returned to Santo Valle, he was welcomed with a celebration by his family and neighbors. The tractor not only transformed his farming, but also changed his life. He began helping other farmers in the region, lending the machine to those in need, and became an example of perseverance and humility. His story reached other towns, and the dealership that once humiliated him began using Raimundo's image as a symbol of overcoming challenges in their campaigns. As for Claudio, he never treated another customer the same way again. The lesson he learned that day changed his perspective forever. Raimundo continued his simple life, but with an even greater certainty. The true value of people is not in what they possess, but in who they are. And so, we close another story filled with emotion, overcoming challenges, and life lessons. I hope Raimundo's story touched each of your hearts. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments section. Share with me your own stories of overcoming challenges, moments that have inspired you or others. Everyone has a battle, a challenge, or a special moment worth sharing. Who knows, your story might inspire someone else too. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our heartwarming stories. Thank you so much for following along, and remember, you're part of this journey. Until next time.